Yeah. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I would like to start by saying thank you to each and every one of us for joining this event today. I will say alhamdulillah to Allah for sparing our lives to fix a date and to make it possible for us to be here. It's a great having this wonderful the Bountiis organizers, and of course
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, zakatihi, wa idan nafsihi, wa zinata arshi, wa mdal kalimatu. Today we're going to be discussing MSMEs. We're going to be discussing how we can get halal funding, you know. But before then, I'm going to be showcasing the reason why we should concentrate on our women, most importantly. I'd like to show a slide very quickly. Just for us to see the need to as much as possible. While they're trying to show the slide, I think I would look at it from my own end to say in Nigeria right now, on the 20% global debt, maternal debt, right? Or rather, Nigeria has 20% of global maternal debt. That is very high. Right? Between 2005 and 2015, we had over 600,000 maternal deaths, right? Those that missed deaths narrowly, over 900,000 in Nigeria. In 2015, Nigeria estimated maternal mortality ratio was 800 deaths per 100,000 live birth. When you combine 46 most developed nations, they had only 12 deaths per 100,000 live births. So a woman in Nigeria has a risk of dying from pregnancy, childbirth, or post-abortion, right? I have one death in developing countries per 4,900 people, right? WHO. Domestic violence, 21%. And it grew by 2013. So you can see how vulnerable our women are. Of married women, 30.5% of them, have experienced some form of physical, emotional abuse, sexual violence in their marriages. 30.5% of them. So they're exposed. Education-wise, in 2010, female adult literacy between ages 15 and above was almost 60%, right? That of male was about 74.4%. So a lot of our women are not, our children, our female children, are not well educated. According to the federal government last year, 16 million children are out of school. At least 60, some said 70% of that figure are women. Now, this is the worst case in the world. So in the entire world, we have the worst case scenario when it comes to women not going to school. Between 2003 and 2013, those that are out of school, we maintain a flat percentage of 31.3%. So for 10 years, we didn't see any improvement, despite all the efforts by international agencies and governments. Poverty-wise, almost 50% of Nigerians are living in extreme poverty. Most of them are women. At least 60 to 70% of them are women. This has also affected unemployment. So employment-wise, our women are highly employed. They hardly have opportunities to get facilities. Financial 33, 36% of our women are financially excluded compared to 24% of men. This creates a gap of 33%, relative gap. So the reason I'm going through all of this is to justify why we need to support women even more. Very quickly again, next slide, it shows that micro businesses in Nigeria, they employ barely less than 10% of total count, right? And you have less than 10 million total assets, which is tiny, less than that. And for medium, it's 100 million above, right? But let me just quickly run through my last slide, right? In Nigeria, you have 97% of MSMEs going to the informal sector. If you pick agriculture alone, right, 99% are informal. Only 1% is in the formal space, right? Now, from our records, based on the analysis I gave before, you don't see women as such in this field. They're very little. So they are vulnerable at home. They are vulnerable in the workplace or in terms of opportunities. The larger industry, 97% are informal. Only 3% is in the formal space. So all the banks we have in Nigeria, all the financial institutions, all the facilities they create, they constitute between 1% to 3% because they belong to the formal space. The remaining 97% are not served. The bulk of that 97% are women. They are not served at all. Right? Okay, so let's look at the last one. In terms of total enterprises in Nigeria, again, very similar to the other ones, the informal space constitutes 98%. So if we have microfinance banks or we create microfinance facilities on every street in Lagos and in Nigeria, it may not even be sufficient. And last slide, why shouldn't women have access to convenient and halal finance? Why? Why shouldn't they have it? Why shouldn't they have access to viable markets? So having access to the market is another. Then the last thing is, why should they not also have access to entrepreneurial capacity building? How do we need to upgrade their entrepreneurial capacities so that they can play in this space? Now, with this, I'm going to set the agenda for today's session, right? So I'm going to be asking my panelists questions around the need to touch the lives of women because they're seriously vulnerable in all ramifications, based on the data I've shown. I'm going to be starting with Brother BUHARI, and then I'll allow MARYAM to get ready. Then I'll move to Brother LEKKI and then Brother ISMAEEL. Brother ALIYU, what do we need to do, right? How do we get finance to them? How do we support them more? In the case of Bangladesh, they've done very well, with Grameen Bank. In the case of Pakistan, they've done very well with Akwat model. The Akwat model allowed, people to put their zakats into a fund, their zakats, their contributions, donation into a fund. And they don't have offices. They disburse money from the mosque in formal settings, right? And they've touched a lot of lives in Pakistan. That's the Akwat model. What do we need to do to reach our people? When a man dies, the woman suffers because, she will have to take care of the family. How do we touch their lives with finance? How do we get finance to them now? not just finance. I'm always an advocate of cheaper finance, at least for the women. Thanks.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Having said, Doctor has already set the pace for the discussion, and Alhamdulillah, no doubt, they said women, they are the mothers of the society. Of course, if they are okay, everyone is okay. So for us, looking at their strategic position without wasting any much time, we came up with some models that will be able to support women entrepreneurs. We have what we call the JAIS Financial Inclusion Center. At the moment, we have done the pilot in Katsina State, in Mayadua, where we've been able to upscale it to about additional 3 to 4 local government. And presently, we are making an effort to upscale it to Oyo State, Ibadan in Oyo State, Kano, Kebbi, and Borno. At the moment, for the pilot, we have financed over 3,000 women with over 60 million. These are creating micro finances under the Mudaraba system of between 10,000 to 30,000. That has been done, and we're still making other strategic efforts, trying to engage international partners like the Islamic Development Bank. We have been in talk with them under a program they call Brave Woman. What the Brave simply means is business resilience assistance for value-adding enterprises. Is an intervention that fully supports only women entrepreneurs. So these are some of the efforts and initiatives that we have put in place that are aimed at financing and supporting women to give them the needed support they want to put in the society. Not only that, our MSME financing that has been able to disburse over 7 billion to over 5,000 have been able to accommodate about 30% of women entrepreneurs. And we're making effort to see how we can upscale that. We have a very strategic and concerted effort in that perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brother BUHARI. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. So let's go to MARYAM. I'm still going to get back to you, Brother BUHARI, on some of the issues around the 3,000 women that you have financed, and of course the ICD intervention fund, if you like, in support, women. But let me go to MARYAM very quickly. I'm aware that Sterling has done quite a lot also in this area. What have you put on the table? I know there was a time that Sterling had tried to do something in Kano for widows, and in other parts of the country, there was a particular chief fund that was on the table at some point to try and support women. How far did it go? What numbers are we looking at, at this time?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. My name is Maryam, and I work with Sterling Alternative Finance. In the past, we have tried to focus our funding towards women, but we realized that a lot of these women required more than just financing. They required training, not just skills, they required entrepreneurial training. They needed to understand the difference between their cost and their sales. They needed to understand that they needed to have records. And these records are not necessarily anything complicated because, as Dr. Bashir has said before, the level of illiteracy is very, very high. So it's just for them to understand, okay, this is my inventory, this is the amount I have, this is the amount I have sold, this is what I came with, and this is what I have made. So these are the things that we needed them to understand. So we focused really strongly on training. We partnered with organizations like Mofita in order to train people, and the focus was largely women and youth. So we have focused on that training more than anything. We also have our SME finance. With that, we are able to finance more women. What we've done is, for women that we give finance, we give a discount. There's an automatic 2% discount on any rates that we give women. So this tries to attract more females to us. Now, what we realized is, while the percentage of entrepreneurs that come to us for financing is is much lower than, there are less women than men, the percentage of non-performing facilities is higher with men. We realize that women pay their loans or facilities back more than men. Women are more trustworthy. Women will pay on time, every time. So this should be a good reason for banks, financial institutions to want to lend to women. However, a lot of these women don't understand what it is they need. They don't have what it is to qualify, what they need to qualify for financing. So our focus is really not just providing finance, but providing knowledge, providing access to markets, providing access to suppliers. We have an e-commerce platform that is very easy to use. So we give you, once we have given you financing or not, even if without financing, you can come and sell your products on our e-commerce platform, which allows you to broaden your market, which allows you to have access to more customers that will enable you pay back any facilities that have been granted. So we're very, very glad. Right now, we are at a point of 25% female entrepreneurs on our MSME. Our target is to hit 60. We have had conversations with Women's World Bank, and we're trying to push financing from partners, international and local. We have reached out to philanthropists, the HNIs within our society, so that they can provide these cheaper funds that we will use to finance women. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mariam. Before I move to Brother Ismail, I'm going to mention something. So we found out that people live better lives in the 80s, right? So poverty increased, right? Income inequality increased. You know, it has become even more serious from 1999, where we established stable democracy, right? Poverty has always increased. And guess what? By 2050, Nigeria is going to be, the poorest people on earth will live in Nigeria. Most of them will still be women. By 2000 and let's say just in another 80 years or so, we're going to be the second most populated country in the world. We're going to surpass China, right? And guess what? The poorest people will still be living in Nigeria. So my concern then is, with all of the efforts that we're putting in place, right, and all of the strategies, the funding, the truth is that the impact is not there, and that's the problem that I see. So we've not seen finance solve these problems. We've not seen more so Islamic finance solve this problem. So let me go to Brother Ismail. Brother Ismail, tell me, with intervention funds coming up here and there, with a lot of things the federal government is doing, another efforts, from international organization, how are we going to at least stabilize the poverty level, at least among our women, at least stabilize, because it's increasing. How do we stabilize it?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Bashir. Considering the strategic position women plays in the society, back at home and in their various offices, it's important that they should be financially liberated. And as Brother ALIYU has equally mentioned, based on what they are doing at their JAIS financial inclusion pilot scheme, and likewise what Sister MARYAM has mentioned, I think most importantly, all of these facilities should be able to trickle down to, to the nooks and crannies of the country. It should be a situation where women generally will be able to, with ease, access all of this financial intervention, and by so doing, they will be financially empowered, and they will stand a good stead in the society in upholding their strategic position, first, both at home and in their various offices. But again, I want to equally look at it from another perspective. While Dr. Bashir was doing his initial notes, he made mention of a situation where a man dies, a woman suffers, And most importantly, in situations like that, women generally should be financially independent, even whether the breadwinner is there or not. And by so doing, if they've been able to, assess all of these financial interventions, they will be able to stand on their own financially, and they'll be able to cater for themselves and their children, as the case may be. But another dimension I want to put into this is the aspect of takafu, because most importantly, when we look at financial inclusion, when we look at financial independence for the women folk, we should equally look at a situation where, if peradventure, the breadwinner of the family is no more there, what happens? That's where we talk of widows. That's where we talk of orphans. What happens to them? If as at that time they are not financially independent, how would they actually carry on? Even while they have been able to access all this financial intervention, how well can they manage it for sustainability, whether the breadwinner is there or not? So I will bring in the aspect of takafu, most importantly to serve as a protection and equally a savings and investment package, where the intervention that they've been able to access will always be there, and it will be a continuum. So in essence, for whatever interventions they've been able to access and how well they've been able to manage it, I equally want to say that takafu insurance will have to play a role in serving as a sort of protection for both the fund they've been able to access to set up either different venture capital, as the case may be, or even for the purpose of themselves and members of their family. So where a takafu plan is taken to secure all of these interventions, either by way of setting up a business enterprise or by way of taking care of themselves and members of their family, a takafu plan will come in place to protect all of this, so that should in case any misfortune happens in between the line, they'll be very sure, and it will be certain that they are adequately protected, and the takafu company will be able to come in at that stage, as another form of intervention. So that's another area in which I'm looking at it. So irrespective of what they've been able to do in this area, they should equally look at the takafu wing and take up a takafu protection to serve as a succor, should in case of any misfortune happening between the line. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Ismail. I'll go to Brother Lekki. Brother Lekki there, ABDURRAHMAN Lekki. I'm just trying to be sure he's there. Okay, while we're trying to get him back, let me go back to Brother ALIYU. I want us to now look at practice. Right, with some kind of their people more easily, and they're able to then touch their lives. And way back then, we worked out mobile means, digital means to reach out all the women. And then, of course, even in Kenya, we had the M-Pesa model that's done very, very well, right? So how can we, at this point, start to consider, because so it's one thing, if our population is increasing, if our population is increasing by about 3%, right, and our GDP is less than that, it means in reality we're going to keep suffering and we're really not improving, right? So how do we match the numbers? So Brother Lekki, We've been established in 2006. I'll call it the foremost, Islamic financial institution. And you have the numbers, you have the cooperatives behind you. Can you showcase in numbers? How many lives have you touched with your model? And how have you done it? Have you simply used a markup sale? Somebody wants to buy, the person wants to sell recharge cards or want to buy a machine to grind pepper or something. How have you been able to help such people out? Because I know you have the numbers to a very large extent. Can you just share your experience with you? Sorry, but Lekki, can you unmute? Can you unmute, please? Thanks. Yes, unmute. Okay. Okay, you're unmuted now.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Yeah, basically, right now we have over 18,000 registered members, and all have been very active since inception. The loan, the interest-free loan given out for last year alone is 2019. It's close to 2 billion in non-interest loan, and quite a number. That is a lot of people of our members benefited from that. But are able to bolster and improve their business. Not the pressure of paying any interest at all. So that has been quite impactful. That is our of the Hassan, and that accounts for over 75% of all hundreds of millions naira value have benefited. I think it has been quite interesting. Although I don't have data of the ratio right now, ratio of male. I recall that we usually look an open market, people sell to our members, and we pay behalf of the members to the vendors. And I can give that off the cuff that over 75% of those people involved.
Well, Lekki, we can't hear you. Could you repeat the last sentence, please?
Hello.
A bit better now. Yes. We missed the entire last sentence.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. I said that we have over 17,000 members, close to 18,000 now. And 2019, I mentioned that we gave interest-free loan, about 2 billion naira interest-free loan to our members. And not only that, that is and that's our flagship of the Hassan, the non-interest loan, available to our members who have stayed with us for 1 year and get double of interest. That accounts for about 75% of our financial activities in an average year. And I also mentioned that apart from that, we also have the product of project financing. And that is like a Murabaha transaction where people come with the products they want to finance on the.
Well, Lekki, we can't hear you again. Okay, well, Balek is trying to join properly or join again or rejoin us. I'm going to move again to Brother BUHARI. Now, for me, the next concern is to reach out to multitudes, to reach out to a lot of people. almost all at once, right? So the question for BUHARI, and of course, the same thing will go to MARYAM, something very similar, is reaching out. It's a big concern for me, for us, for everybody. How can we reach out digitally? How can we use crowdfunding platforms? I mean, the program on TV, we all know about that, let me not mention the name, and they made billions of naira, more money than almost all the banks in Nigeria in 1 year. That program is ongoing right now. Just sending SMS, right? Now, how can we contribute money, cheap money, into portfolios, right? Or into funds for this purpose? How can we get so much? I mean, we don't want people to walk into the banks or open accounts, a lot of stress. How can people just send messages and contribute? Do you have that experience, BUHARI, in your entity, or what plans do you have to achieve such?
Yes, Alhamdulillah, just like the way I mentioned.
Yes.
Okay.
For the purpose of touching lives.
Yes, yes. The focus of the Financial Inclusion Center is basically trying to see how we can really reach out, go to the doorsteps of this to be able to impact in their lives. Of course, the hype has been there on financial inclusion, but for us in JAIS, we felt aside financially including these people, we can go a step further by economically empowering them. So in achieving that, we came up with a model or a product that will be able to address that issue, focusing on about 10 of the 17 SDG goals, talking from poverty, education, and what have you. So the model basically is we have about 3 models that attend to this. The first one is the financial inclusion centers that will go to the rural communities where they do not, they may be constrained to have even phones that you'll be able to reach out to them. So what we do is to put heads with the community people, set up a very a center in that community, train them, educate them, guide them on how to improve on what they are doing, and provide them with financing under the Mudaraba financing scheme. Then the other option is using the JAIS agent network managers. What we do is we look at communities where they have these agent network managers, and we are able to use that platform and be able to advance financing. So basically, there is no issue of you coming to our banks, or maybe our bank is not present there. We have this, either the one that we have a physical structure that you will be attended to, or the one that will meet you at the shop that you fry your baked beans or your or more, and have directly to the businesses at their location of their business, profile them, finance them, and conclude. We basically use the Mudaraba model. And for us, we felt it's not just about economically including them. Just like what Brother AYANLERE has mentioned, of course, we realize that giving them the finance is one angle. But of course, there are so many uncertainties that may set up. So what do we do about that? On that, we are able to now come up with a careful arrangement that will take care of the finance in the event of death. We need not go to their members of the family when they are mourning the death of their mother or their wife and what have you. So Takaful will take care of that. Then the second option is now making provision for fire, burglary, and theft policy also, so that in the event while they are doing their businesses and they suffered one loss or the other, that Takaful will also take care of that. Then the last one is the permanent disability. Possibly in the course of doing their business, they may have to go to market and experience one accident or the other. So all these are factored in to make sure that not only the economic aspect, but their social well-being is also accommodated. So, and the whole model is under the Mudaraba scheme, where we only share a percentage, which is the maximum of 60% of the expected returns. And then we now share that on 60, 30, 10. So these are the models that we've been able to deploy. And we are still working with some fintechs, trying to see how we can upscale. Like I mentioned earlier, our target is earlier, if not for the impact of the COVID, to have presence in not less than 50 locations before they are round out. Not only that, we are working with, like I mentioned earlier, with the fintechs, trying to see how we can really reach out to as many thousands as possible using technology. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, BUHARI. I'm going to come back to you. And the question I'm going to ask when I come back to you, not right now, is about microcredit loss. In Far Eastern economies, they've been able to give some kind of credit loss, in terms of takaful, the entire credit loss. So when you lose the entire money, you're unable to pay, or you are ill or something, the insurance company, takaful company takes care of all of that cost. I'm going to come back there to see how do we achieve that if we don't have that already. I think it's a tough one, but I'm going to come back to you. Sister MARYAM, let me go to you. So I'm particularly worried because I've been involved in financial inclusion for more than 12 years now. And also as a researcher, I look at the figures. Okay, even sometimes they improve. Okay, people are getting financially included. But you know what happens practically? They can't get facility from the bank. They close their accounts. So the data will pick it that they're not financially included. But in reality, they close their account or their account is dormant. So thousands of accounts are dormant. Thousands, not millions, just because they feel, hey, you're not getting facility. Now, so the concern is the figures are showing that, okay, there's improvement, but practically, it's getting worse, from what we have seen in reality. So how do we address this? How do we address?
Okay, I think we lost Dr. Bashir there, but I think he's delivered his question. Honestly, when it comes to financial inclusion, oh, you're back. Okay. When it comes to financial inclusion, people need to understand that being financially included doesn't mean getting a loan. You need to understand that being financially included means having an account that you can use, having access to finance. It's not just getting a loan. So if you have an account, it means you have a BVN. Right now, there are so many things you cannot do without a BVN. Being financially included means even for zakat, times have changed now. Zakat is not they don't do table payments for zakat anymore. They pay through accounts. So you can get your zakat payments through those accounts. There's so many positive things that come from being financially included. So it's really all about the message that is put out there. A lot of people just open accounts because, oh, hey, they heard Sterling Bank is going to give them loan, or CBN is going to give them loan, or Jais is going to give them loans. It's not everybody that even needs a loan, So these are the things that we need to understand. These are the things that we need to put out there between us that are members of financial institutions and our scholars. They need to make people understand the benefits of being financially included. It's not just about getting loans.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll still come back to you on issues around that, but let me go to Brother Ismail. The tough parts of takaful or insurance, particularly takaful. I remember that on the time we had this long discussion, almost a full hour, discussing with our A's, our Sharia board, on issues around job loss, takaful, job loss. So the argument was that, oh, the takaful companies don't have job loss. Somebody has taken a facility, the person, may lose his job or his or her job at some point, So the banks, financial institutions want to have some kind of job loss takaful. We now find that in the takaful space, that product wasn't there, and then we tried to structure one in-house to see how that's going to work out. How do you address that? Considering the fact that for every time you are giving out facility, there's a risk. Like I said, the risk to women is a lot more, no doubt about that. There's a risk. The money may just not come back. We all know that, right? And the good thing with microfinance is that you're giving out a lot. So maybe 5% won't come back and still survive with that, unlike the very big ticket transactions. So tell me about this job loss. Do you have that, or what plans do you have in place? It's okay, you've given somebody this facility. The person at some point will not have a job anymore, but how do they then survive? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bashir. The essence of Takafu insurance, most importantly, is to secure some of those risks you just mentioned, specifically the aspect of job loss. And it's when we look at the practical reality on ground today, considering the incident of COVID-19 pandemic, we discover that a lot of people have even lost their job. If we dig deeper, you will discover that some of the people that have even lost their job one way or the other must have one loan or the other they are even servicing. Now, how will they be able to, meet up with all of this? That is where the issue of Takafu comes in. Now, when we are specific about securing job loss, we equally have to look at the risk that is associated with it. Let us be practical. Let us take Nigeria as a case study. We all know our country, and we all know the rate of unemployment and the rate at which people actually lose their jobs. So, and that is not to say that Takafu companies generally in Nigeria should not come up with a policy that will always take care of that, because that is one aspect that is very paramount presently. So in essence, I would say at our own hand, we don't have the policy yet, but we've looked at the scenario that have played out, and we've looked at the way people have actually lost their job, considering the incident of COVID-19, and we are beginning to look at how we can develop a product tailored specifically to the aspect of people losing their job. We are developing we are presently developing it in-house, and very soon, it will take off. But again, we actually need to look at this area very critically. Very important, and at this point, it's something that all Takafu companies in Nigeria should be looking at.
Okay, thank you very much, very smart. So I'll go back to LEKKI. LEKKI, you were talking the other time. I want you to finish what you're talking about and then add. So you have about 18,000 members. You've done about 2 billion called as an interest-free loan, which is fantastic. So you existed you're one of the oldest financial institutions that does Sharia compliant businesses, right? I'm just wondering why can't you scale up even much more? How can you reach out? Must you have a member before you reach out to them? How can other people be members? Those that are not working in the civil service, for example, so they can scale up more. And of course, also outside Lagos. Because like I said much earlier on, if our population is increasing by 3% and our GDP is less than that, it means all our efforts really is of no effect, except we scale up massively. So how do you achieve that?
Yeah, thank you very much. We have realized that we need to scale up. And let me also correct the notion. Currently, not all our members are civil servants. We have non-civil servants who are members. We have members across the country, and we even have members outside of Nigeria, a lot of them. Even though we still have majority of our members who are civil servants, we have quite a number who are non-civil servants. And like I said again, we realize the need to scale up. And one of the key areas we are leveraging on to do the scaling is on technology. Even though we have technology before, we have a technology-enabled cooperative, but we are no longer a technology-enabled cooperative. We are now a tech-driven cooperative. Before now, it was just using enablement here and there. But right now, we're a tech-driven cooperative. Anybody from anywhere in the world can join our cooperative through our web app or our mobile app, and you can complete all of your membership application, everything online without meeting anybody. And you can do all of your savings online without meeting anybody, irrespective of whether you are a civil servant or not. And one of the key benefits we have had by having members from the civil services is our ability to access their payroll for the purpose of deductions and repayments. And we looked at the possibility of doing things with the non-civil servants through some payment platforms. And we are already concluding our uh, connection to them, integration with those platforms. I'm sure right now our next phase, like we have planned and agreed within the cooperative, is a uh, massive membership drive phase. And we target to reach 50,000 before the end of this year. And one of the key things we want to do to make that happen is to do what we call recruitment promo. It's a massive one. It should be out within the next couple of weeks. And with that, we are sure quite a number of people will join the cooperative and benefit immensely from the process.
Okay, thank you very much, brother. So in other words, you're becoming a tech company, the top 10 companies in the world in terms of viability and market share. They're tech companies. So we envisage you to be some kind of tech company at some point, right? So that's a very good approach.
Even though it's quite expensive, tech is quite expensive. There's no now, and we have realized that we are investing in it massively.
Okay, thank you very much. So I can join a cooperative if I want, I can be a member. Yeah. Very easy. Okay, yeah. Lovely. Okay, Brother ALIYU, I'm going to come to you now, Barbara. So I mentioned earlier on about micro credit loss. So I mean, in Asian countries, if you look at our GDP in 1960, we were on the same level with South Korea and Brazil and India. 1960, the same GDP. But struggle, the other countries went far ahead of us. And we are aware that okay, I'm back. It's going to take the entire Africa up to 2050 to be as large as Brazil or India in GDP terms. We are assuming here that all the other countries will be stagnant, which is not going to be possible, right? And as for South Korea, we left us a long time ago. But don't forget, in 1960, we had the same GDP. So my question to you is, in Far Eastern economies, in fact, 10 years ago, we're better than many of them, in terms of, in a lot of things. But in the last 10 years, they put in place structure to increase production in the system, to mitigate a lot of losses, a lot of risk and all of that, right? And a lot more people are now out of poverty. And one of the things that they did, in Far Eastern economies, including the southern ones, is that they introduced credit loss, microcredit loss, to take care of that segment, which is the huge segment in the market. What plans do we have towards that? Do we have that now? How are we going to achieve that?
Okay, Alhamdulillah. Just like the way you said, of course, we have derailed and we are off the track for quite some time. But Alhamdulillah, I think with the coming of the non-interest financial institutions, people are beginning to see more hope and more reality into financial support for their businesses. Of course, having said this, for the micro or the financial inclusion project, we had almost, so far to date, we have almost 99% performing. So we don't have such problem at that level. Haja Maryam has said it. For women, they have been very good partners. They have been very cooperating, very supportive, and that's why we see it very more to see how we can really push to come up with product and services that will really support them. Then now, generally, what do we do now in view of the general society? Of course, for us in Jais, when the whole issue of trying to see how we can economically empower our people came up, the management in its wisdom set up a full-fledged department that has about four major units. One is the financial inclusion that takes care of the financial inclusion activities. Then we have the MSME that attend to the micro, small, and medium enterprises. Of course, for us, under financial inclusion, we see any financing from 1,000 to 100,000 under financial inclusion. Then micro from 100,000 to 2 million, then from 2 million to 5 million, then from 5 million and above. So then we have the specialized unit where we partner with fintechs, just like the way I mentioned earlier, with the microfinance banks and other related institutions that we can strategically partner. Inshallah, we'll be talking with Brother Lekki so that we can see how we can really explore and, of course, jointly see how we can improve on that figures that they have been able to do. Then, of course, the last one is the agency banking. Of course, with the current realities, we very much look at what had happened during the COVID when government wanted to support the palliative. One of the main instrument to be used was using the BVNs of the people in financially inclusion areas, tier one's account. So, of course, with our thousands of agents within around the country, that has been able to address some of this issue. So basically what we do regarding the key man issue in terms of credit loss, we came up with, we put heads together with the takaful companies, and a key man takaful was put so that at least we are able to manage the situation, though it focused majorly on issue of debt, but discussion is still ongoing, trying to see how it can expand to issues of credit loss as well. But of course, you know, in terms of credit guarantee, Sharia has its own provision where you may not be required to charge any fee for you to give a credit guarantee. However, we are still in talk, and inshallah, we hope to have something like that. The basic thing is you have to empower people first, and then of course, there may be challenges, but that notwithstanding. So what we did was for us to have been able to achieve the milestone we are able to, and also going further, because not only the CBN Intervention Fund, we are in discussion with Development Bank of Nigeria, with other development finance institutions, both locally and internationally. What is the focus? We are trying to see that since these are part of our national initiatives, so there is no basis why the non-interest community should be excluded. So on that basis, discussion has reached a very reasonable stage that anytime from now, we'll see more intervention support, not only the CBN. So what we did in JAIS is now to have under the MSME, 500,000 to 2 million. All we need is 2 guarantors, and we are able to, within 5 working days, inshallah, we are able to process the financing. Then, of course, the second one is the 5 million, 2 million, 2.1 to 5 million, where we use movable assets and register them under the National Collateral Registry to finance. If we are buying equipment, the equipment we use as security. And then if we are financing you under working capital, then we require that either the equipment you have in place or other movable assets or valuables that can be registered under the NCR will be used to make sure that as many as possible people have access to finance. Then, of course, the last one is above 5 million, but less than 20 million for us in JAIS. So what we did was, okay, instead of course, we require a fixed asset. However, we now take it on simple deposit. We have reduced the cost for some of us that are very conversant with the workings in the financial system. We know the cost of doing a legal equity mortgage or maybe perfecting a document. So we have removed all these costs to make it as simple as possible. All you need to do is do the valuation. After doing valuation, then you now, after doing valuation, then you sign up a relevant legal document. And then, of course, we take it on simple deposit. So this has been the strategies that we have deployed, and we are still reviewing them, trying to see how we can make them much more simpler and much more easier, so that as many as possible people can be able to have access to finance with ease, and inshallah, we'll be able to put a U-turn or maybe change the narrative based on the analysis and figures you gave. Alhamdulillah, thank you.
I'm going to ask you a leading question. So I want you to tell me about kafala, personal guarantees, where individuals give guarantee, to support the facility. What's your experience there? So the facility of 2 million or 3 million, as the case may be, but because the person doesn't even have a movable asset, you have asked a third party to give a guarantee. How has it worked out practically?
Alhamdulillah, so far I must tell you that from the time we started the disbursement of the 7 billion that we've been able to achieve so far, to date, we've never had any serious case. And I must tell you that our NPI post-COVID has been less than 1%. These are things that we never believed it could happen. Everybody was seeing that, from the previous experience, in fact, in the first place, you know, most financial institutions are scared of going into the MSME space because of fear of loss. They don't have the record, they don't have the data, they don't have the analysis. You don't even have any account or financials to be able to work with them. But for us, we felt in as much as we really want to support these businesses, we have to be really proactive and we have to be very innovative and we have to be very strategic. So what we did was, all you need is, once you open an account with us, whether you have record or you don't have record, as far as you can walk down to us, explain to us some basic nitty-gritty on how you are able to do your business, we'll be able to look at what will be able to support your business. So even post-COVID, because of course we've experienced there was a hike in terms of the MPIs as a result of the COVID. But alhamdulillah, even at that, we've been managing it and we are somewhere almost around 5% or even lower. So inshallah, the issue of kafala has been very helpful and we've not had so far any case that will lead us to even going to the guarantors to be able to make recoveries.
Thank you very much. I'll go to MARYAM now. MARYAM, 8 years ago, through the Islamic Finance Working Group, a number of us visited the CBN asking for intervention funds. 2 years after, we did a paper, on the use of a couple of models. After 8 long years, we now have intervention funds, right? Now, so lucky you, you can now give out a lot more. Can you tell me how that is working out? I'm aware that at some point, you had a portfolio that allowed you to give out a Muraba at 9.75, aware. But now that is closed, right? You have another one, of course, I'm also aware. But with the intervention fund, have you been able to use it? Is it easy to access? How has it played out? And what priorities are you giving to women, of course?
So alhamdulillah, like Dr. Bashir said, finally, after so long, we have Sharia compliant intervention funds. We have begged, we have written, there's nothing we've not done. But alhamdulillah, it has finally come true. Now, for these intervention funds, we have gone with the CBN structures, the structures that CBN has provided, and then we have created our own internal structures. What we have done is we have created an intervention desk in each state. So in each state, in designated branches, we have an intervention desk where people can go to and make their submissions in order to access these funds. Now, one of the things we have also done is we have partnered, like I said before, we've partnered with business clinics. So in order to make sure that you are able to become eligible, we have partnered with business clinics that will guide people through the process. Because a lot of people don't really understand. They just hear, oh, there's CBN funds and there's CBN intervention funds, and they run to the bank and go and collect their share of the national cake without really understanding what it is they need to do and what they need to put in place. So alhamdulillah, a lot of people have approached us already. We have created, like I said, the desk, and these desk officers guide everybody that comes towards fulfilling all the requirements. And then we also partnered with business development service providers. These people will help you package your transaction. These people will help you. A lot of the intervention funds require some form of entrepreneurial certification. So what we have done is we have partnered with a lot of BDSPs, a lot of enterprise development institutions to provide these certificates. So they will train them. By the time they provide this training for them, then they will become eligible to apply for these intervention funds. Alhamdulillah, we have received a lot. The inflow is massive. Unfortunately, not everybody is eligible. It is very, very, very important for us to put it out there that people need to be eligible. People need guidance. So our focus right now is that guidance to ensure eligibility. Once we put that in place, then we will start to disperse, because no matter how many people come to us, the final approval will come from CBN, and then people have to meet those requirements to be able to have access to these intervention funds. No matter how much we love them and how much we want to make sure they get these funds, final approval comes from CBN. So we have to make sure that we are eligible, we have our records, we have everything that we need, and then we can access these funds.
Okay, thank you very much, Maria. I'm going to go to, I think there should be questions at some point. I'll find out. That's after Brother Lekki, but before then, Brother Ismail, I'm thinking about the cost of Takaful, the cost, in relation to the total cost of the assets. Then I wanted to talk about it. What cost do you have for different, asset classes, if you like, on the one hand? On the other hand, do you like the case of maybe where a broker is involved? Does that reduce your own income? How does that play out? Yes, just talk about that, please. Sorry, you're on mute. Into your mute, Brother Ismail. Thanks.
Sorry. Okay. Now, talking about the costs, on the asset, it has to do, most importantly, we have to consider what's the value of the asset itself. Sometimes there must have been a markup on the asset itself. So the total fund of the asset is what will be considered in applying, let me say, a rate to arrive at what cost the Takaful cover will actually go for. So it varies from individual to individual, and like I said, it depends on the total cost and the markup of the asset involved in this case. Be that as it may, when we look at the way in which all of this product is disbursed, is marketed across the country. Presently, we do that using what I call the agency model. The agency model has to do with the number of agents we have across the country that definitely will go around and meet individuals based on what Takaful product they intend to actually buy. But I appreciate the fact that you mentioned the aspect of brokers here, because we know that some of these products, like we know, their brokers market is being driven by the brokers in a large scale. So we have been looking at that area specifically, and we are beginning to form what I call more like a strategic alliances with all of these brokers that we have all around, so that beyond, in quotes, the conventional product that they do sell massively, we're equally trying to strategically, partner with them for them to be able to effectively, sell all of our Takaful products, so that it will get to the grassroots, it will get to the nooks and crannies of the country. Answering that, I equally want to lend my voice to what Sister MARYAM actually mentioned in the area of our intervention fund, and making sure that it gets across to individuals, and equally enlightening the women and virtually everybody on how the modalities and the requirements that you will need for you to be eligible. I'm looking at an area where there could be more of a strategic alliance, even with our network providers, in disseminating all of these messages to them. So at least as of today, I can say that about 99% of individuals out there, have a mobile phone, and since they can receive messages through their mobile phone, I'm thinking, there could be an alliance with all of these network providers for us to be able to actually get to the grassroots, for people to be more aware and to know what is required of them to be eligible to all of these intervention funds. So answering the question you've asked, I've equally tried to lend my voice to that aspect, so that the idea about the intervention fund and how it could be assessed, the messages, the information will be able to get across to the grassroots. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ISMAEEL. I'm going to go to LEKKI now. I want to ask you, if you like, a tough question. Sometime in Sudan, in Khartoum, we had a program there, and we're talking about Islamic finance, of course, and a lady put up her hand to speak, and she was so annoyed with the Islamic bank in Khartoum there that all the transactions they put on the table are based on Muraba. They're all markup sale. And she had a problem with it. She didn't think they're particularly Sharia compliant on the one hand. On the other hand, she was also wondering that why can't they use the equity kind of modes, Mudaraba and Musharaka and all of that. And that discussion went on and on, and everybody tried to convince her. So in your own space, I'm aware you use a lot of Muraba, all right? Have you thought about the fact that you can actually partner with a group of particularly women? Let's leave the men out for now. They can actually partner with them to say, okay, this is a community of Muslim women or women generally, as the case may be. They want to do a particular business. They need just 10 million naira. Have you considered a Mudaraba or a Musharaka with them? If you have, how much of that have you done? What is the size of your books in terms of Muraba? And have you considered Mudaraba and Musharaka?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Bashir. The last 2 years, the pioneers of the cooperative did a lot of Mudaraba and Musharaka transactions. And I can tell you for free, over 75% of them went out. And I'm sure you recall, I called this on a few weeks back. One of it has been a trail of woes and crash. I can tell you for free, since I came on board as the president, I made a decision with all of the ESCO. We agreed. For now, no Mudaraba or Musharaka transaction at all. But they don't know. When you bring it, it's COA. It's dead on arrival because of the experience. Yeah, but then we're not closing our eyes to it, especially when I just had Brother ALIYU, BUHARI, on some of the things they are doing. Something we would want to learn from, we want to partner with, and see how we can also make that happen in our cooperative, especially for the women. He gave an offer, and I think I'm publicly accepting that offer on behalf of the cooperative now. So we are open to it. But if the experience we have had is anything to go by, brother, it has been a trail of woes and crash. And I'm not sure we want to go back there without being cautious. We will still go, but we have to now go cautiously, especially go with, even though a younger big brother now, which is Jai's Bank, who has learned the rope, I guess. I hope sincerely we'll be able to work it together. Yeah, that's what I think we can do going forward.
Yeah, from a general business strategic perspective, it's always nice to specialize. You don't want to do Mudaraba Musharaka for every transaction. You want to have specialties in one or two places and then perfect them. When you perfect them and you monitor closely, they would work out. Yeah, we know that it's the most risky type of Islamic finance contract, those two contracts. However, and of course, even under IFSB standard, IFSB standard, you need to make provision. And in fact, you can even impair your capital sometimes, yeah. But if you perfect one area or two areas, and say these two areas, you're going to perfect them very well, and they're going to have experts on ground or as consultants that will help you block all the holes, that may just be perfect. That may just be nice. But that's what I know they've done, even in the UK, in the Middle East, they always them. The use is very fast. It may just work out well. travel, I want to enjoy life. You know, I don't want to do business. I decided to emerge, you know. But again, the real mode of Islamic finance is Mudaraba Musharaka. So it's left for us as industry practitioners to perfect them as much as possible. That's going to take me to Brother Liu. You know, how would you ensure Mudaraba Musharaka transactions? How would you ensure them? What kind of takaful are you going to have in place? You know, is takaful allowed for such? Who takes the cost of takaful? Thanks.
Alhamdulillah, though my big brother is there from the Takaful angle, but then having been a member of that platform before now, being on this level, basically you see globally, if you look at the Islamic financial institutions, there are always challenges on issues of doing mudaraba and musharaka. And just like you rightly said, you have to really identify a particular segment or area and see how you can perfect it. And for us in Jais, when the journey starts, we equally look at that, because the basic thing that any other person that is outside the Islamic finance space always look at is the moment you mention Islamic finance. Unfortunately, we've not been able to fine-tune it to the extent that it will be very applicable, and we are deploying it in our finances. So that's why for us in Jais, we had a test run. We had finance with like 1 or 2 institutions under this model, and then the experience has been that, okay, this is the expected return, and then virtually the customer was being, okay, since you're expecting XYZ kept coming. But then we said, no, this is not what is expected of a mudaraba or a musharaka financing. We are not expecting to be seeing 10 million. There's no the profit does not increase, or we cannot now other local microcredit like the Hududullah and what have you. And then we now came up with our own model, and Alhamdulillah, we've done it. And just like where I come to you, up to date, if not for some little implication of the COVID issues, which of course we've been able to manage it, we have 99% success. Having said this, going forward now, what we are looking at is forming strategic alliance and partnership, looking at particular clusters and coming up with a value chain activity. For example, now, if we are trying to look at the leather value chain, we look at those selling the animals, we look at those slaughtering the animals, we look at those now after buying the leather, those packaging it, those now by right from the word A up to the Z, virtually everybody within the value chain has been touched. So we've been able to now fine tune and also look all leakages, and we are that way. Those that we may have to do mudaraba with them, of course, you will not expect someone that will go to my Adwa or Yobe to buy pumps and expect him to start giving you invoice to do murabaha with him. So this is what we are looking at. And Alhamdulillah, we've been able to start similar thing with some those in the fashion industry as well. Where are those in the fashion like tailoring? Where are the tailors? Where are those selling the materials? Where are the manufacturers? More especially with the intervention now to support the textiles, or maybe those selling textiles in Aba or elsewhere. The same thing also. So we are with this, we believe, inshallah, if we're able to fine-tune everything, we should be able to deploy these models in doing our finances. And then, of course, that we know there's a lot gap in terms of knowledge. The gap is so huge. So as part of effort, knowing that everything now has gone digital. Everybody is talking of Zoom, everybody is talking of WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, and what have you. We are deploying video tutorials whereby you are being explained how you'll be able to access finance, business, make your business case, open account, basic financing or Islamic finance product and services. So by the time all these are out there in the space, it gives a lot of opportunities, and then it will be able to now bridge that knowledge gap that we, just like what Hajia Maryam has mentioned, that we are currently facing with. Of course, many will come, but then the qualification, we have to really come down to the level of people, look at what they are into, try to guide them so that we are able to achieve what we want to achieve, inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ALIYU, bro. I'm going to ask a leading question. So tell me about, again, let's go back to guarantee. Would you accept tangible collateral in the case of Mudaraba Musharaka? What's the position of your ease on that?
For guarantee,
For Mudaraba Musharaka.
Under Mudaraba and Musharaka, basically, yes, of course, we should be able to take both tangible and intangible as well. Basically, Mudaraba and Musharaka thrives on issue of trust and sincerity, amana, and what have you. So once you are able to really work out something on this and be comfortable with the cluster or the person or the business you are going to really go into, additional guarantees are only buffers to give you more confidence, and possibly in the event of default, or maybe in the event of default, or maybe the customer is trying to be very funny, you have something to rely on.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, just to share a quick experience, I remember that in the previous employment, again, argued at length with our Sharia board, to say, hey, these transactions are going bad. What do we do? And they came up with a position to say, where you can establish negligence. So you can take the collateral, tiny collateral, let's say part of the offer, but only call upon where you can establish negligence. So that means that from the beginning of the transaction, in a documented fashion, so that when there's a problem, you can then say, oh, the other party was negligent. On the one hand, on the other hand, the applicable legal structure that will have to be used will be Sharia, so that it doesn't go to a conventional court, either Sharia or, of course, arbitration, where Sharia scholars will come together to solve that problem. So that practically it's good to be accepted, but it's part of the offer. It can be collected, can be perfected if you like, but you can only call on it where there's negligence. So a build-up to ensuring that negligence was truly, negligence truly happened, will have to be properly, documented. On the basis of that, yes, we'll be able to take additional tangible collateral. I'm going to go to Maryam, looking at the same issue around Mudaraba Musharaka. But this time around, let's just even say Mudaraba. So again, women will remain unemployed in Nigeria for the next 80 years, based on the data that we have. And women are going to remain vulnerable. To be increasing based on the, so I'm just thinking very important. But the transaction is yours. The other parties are coming in to ensure that it works. That gives them employment. They have a source of livelihood. And you can touch the lives of numbers all at once. You want to talk about that, please?
Okay, that's a fantastic idea. We have actually explored something like that. So most of the Mudaraba transactions we like to engage in are not like a permanent Mudaraba between us and the company. It's mostly transactional. So there's a particular transaction that we have with a larger entity. It could be a proper corporate. It could be a small bit, an SME. And there is, of course, you have to look at the value chain. So that's where we now bring in these clusters. We have worked with several associations, several organizations that have arranged these ladies in clusters based on what it is they do, clusters based on location. So for example, we have an agri transaction whereby we are supplying maize, for example. We have our buyer, we have our off-taker, we just need a supply, and there's a broker. So we treat it more like the anchor scheme. So all the women will put together, they now come and they provide this corn through the broker, and then that is now given to the end user. So by doing that, we are not really in mudaraba with them, but we have created employment for them. We are buying whatever product it is they have. We have done something like this for groundnut oil from Kano. We got a large cluster of women that produce groundnut oil manually, and then we put them together, and they were able to provide us with the amount, the quantity that we needed for the end user. So at the end of the day, like Brother ALIYU said, there's always this thought of, oh, Islamic finance is partnerships. Islamic finance has to be a profit-sharing partnership. But sometimes to be able to reach people, you don't need all of the contracts. All you need is to provide them with an avenue to sell their products, to be able to create employment for themselves, to be able to create, and even their children were involved. So the entire family would be involved, and you find that you have changed lives that way.
Thank you very much, Samara. So I'm going to go to Brother Ismail. You know, people have particularly accused me that, hey, what you do in Takaful is the same thing. It's exactly the same thing with insurance. Why do you call it Takaful? Why are you giving it a different name? You know, why are you painting it that way? That's insurance is insurance. You know, what's the difference between conventional insurance and Islamic insurance? You know, and I remember that at some point, where I'd worked before, you know, the age insisted that in our own case, we're not even going to go for conventional insurance because it's not the same thing, right? My customers always argue, okay, I'm doing a muraba with you. Allow me to use my own Takaful company, you know, and the age is saying that, no, even in the case of a muraba, you know, let's use Takaful, you know. So how do you solve, so what's the difference really? How would you differentiate them? You know, are they the same thing? You know, what's the difference between conventional insurance and Takaful? Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Bashir. Definitely, there are basic differences between a conventional insurance business and a Takaful insurance business. And I will just break it down into three simple, using three very straightforward and simple examples. When we talk about insurance generally, we talk about risk sharing. We talk about risk transfer between the insurance company and the customers, the insured and the insurer, as it were. Basically, in the conventional setup, that is the way it is. The buyer, the customer, the insured, is transferring his risk to the insurance company at a fee known as premium. You know, that is a typical conventional insurance analogy of our insurance business. But when we look at it critically under the Takaful insurance business, rather than talking about risk transfer, we'll be talking basically of risk sharing. And risk sharing in this sense, let me break it down a little. We only have the Takaful operator as fund managers. You understand? The participant, who happens to be the customer, one way or the other, by virtue of patronizing the Takaful company, they are buying that product and they are contributing, they are making contribution over time. And what is expected of a Takaful operator is to manage that fund on behalf of the participants. The participants themselves are the owners of their money. The Takafu company is only managing that fund on their behalf. And it now depends on the model of operation that the Takafu operator is using. That will enable him to earn his own income by managing the participants' contribution. So it might be a Mudoraba model, it might be a Wakala model, or what I call an agency model, and it might be an hybrid model. So one basic difference, conventional insurance, their risk is being transferred to the insurance company, whereby in a Takafu model, we are talking about risk sharing, where the insurance company or the Takafu operator manages the fund of their participants at a fee. Whatever happens with the participant fund stays within the confines of the participant fund and is being managed that way. That is one aspect of it. Another example or another analogy I want to bring up here is that when it comes to a conventional insurance practice, irrespective of the under a conventional insurance practice, completely by way of interest, like we all know. But under arrangements, rather than talking about interest-bearing instrument in managing people's funds, we'll be talking about profit sharing. Still borders on what model that a capital operator is using. But irrespective of the model, we still be talking about profit sharing as a means of people having returns on their investments. And how do we share profit? We can use the Mudraba model in sharing profit. What is certain when we are sharing profit using the Mudraba model is the ratio in which that profit will be shared. That will be clearly spelled out from the one, by the Takafu operator to the participants in question. But again, when the quantum of the profit based on the investment is declared, then the profit sharing ratio can now be applied. So that's another basic difference between a conventional practice and a Takafu practice. Interest-bearing instrument for a conventional practice, insurance practice, profit sharing model for the Takafu insurance practice. And basically, in any Islamic financial transaction, there are some things that should not even be there, and it cut across whether it is Islamic banking or Takafu. One of it is what we call uncertainty. Uncertainty. Another aspect is gambling. Unnecessary speculation, uncertainty, gambling, then interest, like I've earlier mentioned. All of these, when we look at the conventional insurance practice, all of these things are embedded in it. But under a Takafu arrangement, all of these things are totally locked out. And that's what makes it.
Allow me to cut you. So I'm buying a truck. I'm buying just 2 trucks. In the conventional space, they ask me to bring 3.5%. In the Takafu space, they tell me to bring 3.5%. At the end of 1 year, the truck is fine, no accident, no problems at all. How would you look at that? So what happens in the conventional space? What happened in Takafu space? Let's just look at that as a typical example.
Thank you very much. What a good example you have actually come up with. Now, under a conventional insurance practice, a situation like that, the moment you've paid your 3.5% as premium to cover the risk that truck at any point, if that contract elapses, maybe, of course, definitely it might be an annual contract. By the time it elapses at the end of 1 year, the premium you pay, that 3.5%, it totally belongs to the insurance company because that's the fee you have paid to secure that risk that could happen to that truck. And basically at the end of the day, if such a risk does not happen to that truck, of course, the conventional insurance company is not going to pay you anything. But in between the line, if the risk that you have secured as a customer eventually happens to that truck, definitely the conventional insurance company will now indemnify you. Now, under a Takafu arrangement, where you have equally paid the same 3.5%, and at the end of the contract, after a year, nothing happens to that truck, definitely a percentage of what you paid as premium, taking into cognizance that no major claim was paid in that financial year, after valuation of the fund and what have you, a certain percentage of what you have paid as premium will be brought back to the customer. So that's one major difference, But if within the line, that same year, there's a claim on that same truck, and a claim is paid within that particular contract period, definitely, a claim has been paid and nothing goes, that claim is what the participant now benefits, and at the end of the day, nothing is flowed back to the insured, to the participant as it were. So in a takafu arrangement, something we always explore that if there is no people. Or in a conventional arrangement, so far, nothing happens in between that contract period, nothing goes back to you, which explains my initial point. In a conventional insurance setup, we are talking about risk transfer, where the insured transfer is risk to the insurer. But under a takafu arrangement, we are talking about what? Risk sharing. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, doctor.
Okay, thank you very much. So talk about, I want you to space. Yeah, can you differentiate that from life insurance and life takafu? Yeah, can you hear me? I can hear you.
Okay. Alhamdulillah.
No, sorry, no, I'm still coming to you, brother. I want to brother Ismail. Differentiate life takafu and life insurance. What is the difference between the two?
Okay, thank you very much. Under a life insurance operation generally, it still borders on the fact that customers are paying premium to the insurance company, as a result of the product they buy. And at the end of the day, if nothing happens within the contract period varies in duration anyway. So if nothing happens along the line, there's something we call sum assured under a conventional life insurance practice, If nothing happens to you within the period of the insurance contract, at the end of that contract, your sum assured will be paid. You understand? And if within that period, a death claim arises, because when we talk of life insurance contract, one of the major risks that is being secured here has to do with the death of the insured. So if the insured dies before that contract finishes, before the duration of the contract, the same sum assured will equally be paid to the customer, as it were. But I don't want to go a little deeper into the different forms of life insurance we have in the area of term assurance, the endowment product, and the whole life assurance. Don't let us go into that. But let us nip it down to what we have under a takafu arrangement. One unique principle under a family takafu arrangement, which is Islamic life insurance, one unique principle there is the principle of the tabaru. And that tabaru has to do with what we call mutual assistance amongst all the participants. Now, the contribution each participant is bringing to the pool, there will be an agreement between the participants in the pool that a certain percentage of that amount, of that contribution, that each participant brings into the pool will be donated to the tabaru pool. The essence of donating part of your contribution into the tabaru pool is to secure any eventuality that might happen to any participant in the pool. They are trying to guarantee each other against any unforeseen circumstances. That is an example here. Even permanent disability is an example here. So my contribution that I'm bringing to the pool, a certain percentage of it, I'm donating it to the tabaru pool. So that if anything happens to the participants in the pool, it is from that tabaru pool, the pool of tabaru, that the beneficiary of such an individual still in that particular pool will be adequately compensated. For all the same, beyond that tabaru contribution, the participants themselves have their savings and investment account, which constitute the larger proportion of what they are paying as their contribution. Say, for example, if I'm paying a 50,000 monthly contribution as a result of a takafu education plan I've taken for my child, out of that I can say about maybe 45,500 goes into my investment account, and the remaining 500 I donate it into my tabaru account just to secure any form of eventuality that might happen to me. So along the line, after 6 years, if let's say the educational plan, the duration I've taken is 6 years. After 6 years, all that I've contributed into my investment account, that share plus the profit sharing process that has gone on it over that period is what will plow back to me at maturity, as my maturity proceeds. Whatever I might have contributed into that tabaru pool still stays with the tabaru pool. I get practically nothing from it, except when the takafu company does evaluation of the tabaru fund over a particular period of time, and if they see the profit that might have grown on that. So by way of analogy, when valuation is done and there is surplus on that tabaru fund, that could be plowed back as a surplus sharing among the participants in the pool. So that is one major area. I mean, those are some very basic differences between a life insurance practice and a takafu insurance, which is a family takafu arrangement, that's an Islamic life insurance practice?
Alhamdulillah, I think Brother Bashir, Dr. Bashir is off, but then let me just quickly say one or two things in addition to what Brother Ismail has said regarding takaful. It's important for us to understand that in addition to what Brother Ismail has said, takaful basically got its basis from the verb kafala, which means guarantee. And it's on two principles of tabarru and ta'awun. Tabarru means donation. So unlike in conventional insurance, where you are going to buy something which is uncertain, which brought about the garar in the whole transaction, in this palace, you are making a contribution to the you are coming in to make a contribution to the scheme. That's one. And then secondly, the ta'awun aspect, which simply means brotherhood. So unlike the conventional insurance where everybody is on his own, in takaful, you are there in brotherhood. So the verse that in the Holy Quran that gave the basis for takaful is this verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah that says, Ta'awanu alal birri wa taqwa. So that means people can come together to support themselves in doing something good. Then now I'm going to the other point. Of course, if there is one of the value addition of takaful is the issue of surplus distribution. Of course, in conventional insurance, there may not be surplus because you have buy a policy and you only benefit when you make a claim. And if you don't have that claim, then you are gone. But in takaful, aside being benefiting from claim, you stand to also share in the surplus of the pool because the takaful operator is only a manager and will only take a share if they are doing the mudaraba agency or the agency, depending on the model they are being deployed. So for you to earn this surplus, there are two basic things that you need to understand. Firstly, in insurance, there's what we call earned income and unearned premium. So if your policy is running, so that means it is unearned until when it has lapsed, until when the policy is due, that is when it will be assumed that that policy that premium of that is the only surplus. And then that is how I'll be able to earn from the surplus. So
Barry,
this is yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we need to be rounding up. I'm going to give just a minute to everyone to round up, but I want to talk about just one last thing that we need to do differently to support women more. Just in a minute. I'll start with Brother BUHARI, please. 1 minute. Just last
Alhamdulillah. Strategically, for us to be able to really impact on women, this is the first step. I think this event that we are having is like the first strategic action in this directive. So basically, from here, we are also engaging and partnering with other women associations, cooperatives, unions, and what have you. And then, of course, we are looking at making more access to finance requirement conditions for women entrepreneurs to be more simplified and more ease so that they will be able to do that. So with all this, inshallah, I want to believe possibly by 31st December, if Allah wills, we will be having such event, we should be able to come up with more and better figures in terms of women financing. Thank you very much.
Inshallah, inshallah. MARYAM, please.
Because Brother ALIYU has really covered it, we're all going to do the same thing as financial institutions. I'm going to talk as the only woman on the panel. Men, you need to support your women. You have to support your women. There are so many women that cannot to collect financing, to collect loans, and then they collect these funds from them and they do not give them back. Men must support their women. Without the men, nothing can happen. I'm glad that it's really, really fantastic that I am the only woman on this panel, because it shows that men are paying attention. Men have woken up today.